You're listening to the Oneofus.net podcast network.
Food anthropology.
Okay.
And so today we're going to start in the 1910s, which we've decided that we are doing afternoon tea is our theme for the 1910s.
Is that the second they
So what was going on in the 1910s? People
well, I mean,
dancing on tops of flagpoles?
Why don't you tell us, Johnny?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure you know better than us, Johnny.
I am a father-in-law now.
Oh, jeez.
Back when he was going to school with Woodrow Wilson.
They wore an onion on their belts. That was the style at the time.
Johnny's gonna do that all day because being a father-in-law is the only new thing for him.
That's the only thing he's got going for him.
I'm just trying to think what was going on pre-World War I.
I mean, well...
Is that the jazz?
I mean, pretty much
No,
pretty
not
much.
yet.
Yeah, the 20s is the jazz
Yeah.
age. And everyone before that's like nothing happened.
You can still
Don't
drink
worry about it.
booze.
Everything else
Keep moving on. Nothing to see here.
Right.
It's the era when best things in sliced bread actually meant something.
Yeah.
That's where we
true.
are right now. Like
Yeah.
when they talk about the 20s, they'll be like, nothing really interesting happened until 2020. So, you know.
We became a country. We burned a few witches.
Yeah.
Well, the 1920s was like prohibition. We're gonna get to that eventually.
It was a dark time.
in the book. Yeah, it was a very dark time. So cheers to that.
So what you prepared a bunch of like these
Traditional
traditional
afternoon tea. Afternoon tea was actually invented in 1840, believe it or not, by Anna Maria, the 7th Duchess of Bedford. And yeah, I know. So in so at the time, it was very fashionable. They had an early lunch and a very late dinner, and so she found herself becoming faint between the hours of 3 and 5. And so she would take a pot of tea and some bread and butter sandwiches because that's what they fucking ate back then. And she would take it to her chambers and have a little snacky snack. Well, she enjoyed it so much, she started inviting her friends, and then next thing you know, it became like super fashionable. And by the 1880s, hotels and department stores were opening up their own tea rooms, and it was like all the rage. And so by 1910, it had come to America, and it was a thing.
Okay.
So
Did you
that's
say Go ahead, Johnny.
That's a high tea? Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
you shouldn't confuse afternoon tea with high tea.
Okay.
Afternoon tea is the uppity ladies' tea. That's between, it's usually around 4 o'clock, and that's where you have the little sandwiches and the scones. High tea, also known as meat tea, is a working class thing. And that's something that when you would come home from work, you would have meat tea or high tea, and that was like
pastrami tea.
There actually is a thing called meat tea, and it's basically bouillon.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, but meat tea or high tea is like the guy comes home from work and it has like a meat course, so it's more like dinner. They didn't really have a concept of lunch until the 20s.
Yeah,
where
the working classes didn't have afternoons. So first you had to invent afternoons.
Yeah.
And then afternoon tea, which really helped because before you just got up in the morning and then it was night. There was no transitional period.
You just got up in the
Really
morning and then you went to
sucked.
bed. You worked and then you went to bed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people didn't even have jobs until like post-Civil War.
Especially
after mass
women.
production
Yeah,
started.
especially
People had
women.
work.
Yeah, the American Revolution changed everything.
Yeah.
Punch the clock.
That's exactly right.
It's pretty much what they were saying about our generation. Like they pretty much just like got on the internet and said, "Is there any work today?" No. Okay.
Well, and so you think about it, there like restaurants weren't necessarily a concept in the 1910s. They did have restaurants which women were not allowed in. So the tea room was really like a safe haven for women. Like they could go to the tea room, chat with their ladies, have a little, snack and gossip and dress up and go shopping. And
Talk smack about dudes.
Yeah,
What's
for
weird
sure.
is that's what was going on in the men's restaurants.
Well, the men would eat in taverns or pubs.
Right.
And so that was like, women were not allowed in
We're having our
taverns.
shepherd's pie and all that.
Women weren't allowed to, it was very taboo for a woman to drink, and to be seen in our tavern or pub was like, oh my god, she's a ill repute, a lady of ill repute.
Until Virginia Slims came along.
So, of course, the very first course of a tea is the actual tea. So today we have a traditional black tea, and it's infused with orange rind, just to give it a little extra pizzazz. This tea, we bought it, shout out to the Steeping Room here in Austin, Texas.
Nice.
It's a beautiful tea room. They have specialty teas all day, and you can go there for a modern version of afternoon tea.
Well, technically, the first course is Oscar
Beer.
Blues
Oh, yeah,
Brewing
we gotta-
Company. Dale's Pale Ale, the first craft brew in a can. It's delicious.
So we did an iced tea because A, it's hot as fuck, and iced tea is something that you would have seen on the menus in the tea rooms. Like the iced tea and iced coffee were quite popular in the 1910s.
They had
So
ice in the 1910s?
They did. They had ice. I
Yeah,
mean,
Doc
it was
Brown
a
ate it.
rarity. Like it was a thing, but I mean, otherwise. So it's actually.
So we can taste it now?
Yeah, you
Just
can definitely
pair to
taste
me
it.
with-
This is like they have baristas that make tea. Like that's how big of a deal it is. Like the purity of the tea and all of that. I mean, I can't even talk about that because it's way too complicated.
Well,
for
except
me.
we still weren't over tea yet from the whole British thing. We're just like,
Right.
that's why we drink tea. It's a tea thing. We do tea. And then eventually someone's like, what's this tequila stuff?
Are you a big tea drinker?
I do. I drink iced tea in the summer and hot tea in the winter.
Yeah.
That's like I drink tea instead of
What
coffee.
decade they start adding sugar to tea?
That's a really good question. I think that sugarcane started becoming really popular in the 20s, and that's when they started being able to like readily sweeten things. Because, like, for example, salt. They didn't even have salt in their pantry until 1912.
Yep.
Morton's put out pourable table salt in 1912. Up until that point, it was like a big old block
At
that
one,
you had
at
to
one
chisel.
point, salt was worth more in its weight than gold.
Yeah.
Actually, where
That
the
valuable.
word salary comes from. You were paid in salt. The salaria.
So salt and sugar. The primary like spices that they had back then were mustard, turmeric, and cayenne, and black pepper.
So you wouldn't think turmeric, because it's like, that kind of feels like that somewhere along the line got lost in America.
Yeah.
And obviously now it's fashionable.
Yeah.
But like,
Right.
it was like, I remember when I was a kid, nobody was putting turmeric in shit.
Turmeric is a super popular like spice back then. All of the almost all of the recipes we looked at were like add turmeric, and I'm just like I'm not putting.
Make that shit taste like curry. I'm all about it.
Curry was a thing. They had curry in 1910s.
Well, I mean, because they were still more influenced by the British, who obviously had
Yep.
a lot of the Indian influence.
curry, egg salad, chutneys.
Yeah.
Those were all very popular foods.
I dig that shit. I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, so
When I
well,
tried to get the term mango chutney, like Fonzie's hay.
hey,
several years
you're
ago,
just gonna do
like,
mango
I
chutney.
would say like, oh man, things are great, man. They're going mango chutney. And I would try to
That's
you know how hard
Johnny,
it is
can
to
we
get a
stop?
catchphrase.
Let's
mango
Wasn't that your Trader Vic's days
Yeah.
and all
Really
that?
hard to get a catchphrase.
Fetch
going, is all
is
I'm
not
saying.
gonna
Sir, I will try to help make that happen.
Actually, what happened? This is no joke. I dreamed it. I dreamed that happened.
Uh-huh.
So then I started doing that. I would tell people about the dream, and I bet you later tonight I'll say something was mango.
Johnny, your streets
Mango
ahead.
chutney. So, afternoon tea is usually 3 courses. The first course being the finger sandwiches or the tea sandwiches. So the first tea sandwich that we have for you
Uh-oh. Get ready.
is,
Hold your gag reflexes.
you ready?
Yeah.
Cucumber cream cheese.
Oh, that's not bad. Come on. That's easy. I can do
That's as American as the
cucumber
Queen.
I know. So cucumber sandwiches were generally made in one of 2 ways. The first way was with a mayonnaise dressing, as Dennis mentioned in the Facebook thread today, with like this, cream sauce that was probably pretty vinegary. The
He was
other
really
way
traumatized.
is,
Yeah.
I know, I feel like he had
like
some
Dave Jill.
serious hate about that. But yeah, the other way would be with cream cheese, and it's very traditional. This recipe is from, you ready for this? Good Things to Eat as suggested by Rufus, chef of the subsidiary companies of United States Steel Corporations in Chicago, dated 1911.
Oh, that Rufus.
Yeah,
I love
not
that Rufus.
I thought it was
God.
Rufus and Shaka
Estes.
Khan. No.
And there really isn't anything different about this cucumber cream cheese than if you would walk into a modern tea room and it'd be like cucumber cream cheese. He used cucumber pulp, and then he seasoned it with lemon. Again, salt, not a big thing back then, so they would use unusual flavors like anchovies, lemon, and onion juice to flavor their cucumber sandwiches. We did make a sandwich with onion juice, and it was fucking terrible. It was
How did you get the juice? Did you like?
juiced an onion. I'm
Wow.
not
You have to milk it. They got
No,
tiny little butters.
tiny little hippos.
You know, this is actually quite good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's, you know, I'm not a big fan of cucumbers. I'm not a big fan of cucumbers, and it's only recently in the past year or two that I can kind of eat them. It's taken me literally almost 40 years to realize why I don't like watermelon or cucumbers, because they taste identical, except one is the sweet version. Watermelons are basically just cherry flavored cucumbers to me. They all have that same base sort of note that I find very disagreeable. But this, maybe it's just the whatever you put in the mayo that kind of
Cream
undercuts
cheese.
the
Yeah,
cream
there's no
cheese.
mayonnaise
The sweetness
in
of the cream cheese kind of cuts through some of that acidity of the cucumber that I find so disagreeable. So good
I
job.
also like the
pulped or
lemon
was it-
juice.
w-
And the
did you
lemon juice
pulp
helps.
the cucumber?
Yeah, we pulped the cucumber. Yeah, that was, I guess you use cucumber pulp, and we had, I mean, like seriously, there's so much water that comes out of that cucumber.
Yeah, that was tasty. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very standard.
You
and
were
I wanted,
scaring us and
I
shit.
know,
Yeah.
right?
You're like the scary stuff coming.
Oh, this is just the beginning. You know
I'm
she's gonna
actually working my
she's gonna
way
work
up
her way
to
up.
it.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I was gonna say